everyone, and welcome back to the Edtech Podcast, the show about improving the dialogue between ed and tech for better innovation and impact. This week we throw back to my visit to Dubai in March. I was visiting the Global Education and Skills Forum, which hosts the Global Teacher Prize and the Next Billion Prize. The Next Billion Edtech Prize was launched by the Varkey Foundation to recognise the most innovative technology destined to have a radical impact on education in low-income and emerging world countries. Because of this mission, the types of edtech offered is refreshingly different to that often talked about. In this episode, you'll hear from the three startup finalists, Ubongo, Praxi Labs and Dost, who each received $25,000 in prize funds. Ubongo is based in Tanzania and leverages the power of entertainment, the reach of mass media and the connectivity of mobile devices to deliver effective, localised learning to African families at low cost and massive scale. Its family-friendly content promotes literacy and education in resource-poor areas. Dost is based in India and empowers parents of any literacy level to take charge of their child's early education, creating short, friendly audio content that is sent to parents via their mobile phones. And Praxi Labs is based in Egypt and provides virtual laboratories for schools and learning organisations in the Middle East and beyond. With 3D simulations of major experiments in biology, chemistry and physics, students can access these from their devices at any time. You'll also hear from Carla Ertz, the director at Tomorrow Institute, about the prize and Next Billion EdTech Summit and the Amidion Network on their recent EdTech report. If you're involved in delivering education in low-income countries, either as an EdTech entrepreneur or as an educator leader, then this one should be for you. Don't forget to comment at Podcast EdTech, and we would love it if you could rate and review the EdTech Podcast wherever you're listening in. Have a great week. Goodbye. Okay, so I'm really thrilled because I was just about to leave, and then Doreen Kessie, who's the Chief Business Officer for Ubongo, based in Tanzania and the winner of the Next Billion EdTech Prize here at the Global Education and Skills World Forum, just came through the door. So all of the communications worked, so that's really great. And congratulations on winning today.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Can you explain a little bit about what happened this morning and the pitching process? Mm-hmm. And then we can dig into Ubongo and what it, the mission of Ubongo as well.
Yeah, today was, we started off as 30 companies pitched, and then they cut us down to 6, and today those 6 companies were pitching. So it was incredible, the experience, being out there and really seeing all these people who are excited to hear about our work. It was really good. I think what's been overwhelming is the feedback after, especially after winning. People
just
are very excited.
in terms of volume of interest and people
exactly,
wanting to connect
and wanting to collaborate and partner and help. People offering free help. I've had prime ministers say, "I will volunteer."
Oh, really?
I'm like, wow,
well, tell me more. Which prime minister was that?
Yeah, I met a former prime minister of Bosnia, and from Bosnia, and he was like, "Yeah, I love this work, and I'm happy to support it any way I can.
That's amazing.
Sign me up, volunteer, anything." And I was like, "Wow, this is amazing." I think.
Yeah. Did you get his contact details?
Yes, I do. He actually just emailed it. Yeah,
That's
he's
fantastic.
like, "I want your email now." So that was really good. I think people really resonate. It resonates with people, like what the challenges are in education, and especially Africa, right? Because most families don't have access to internet or devices. So what do? You have to get creative. You have to be innovative and fast.
Yeah, you have to. How do you reach those people en masse? Because we've got so used to where people do have connectivity and smartphones that
then it's
almost like mindless. Isn't it?
It's like, and that's the challenge. Like there is a lot of great educational content out there. It's just not getting to the poorest kids in Africa.
And
there's a reason why. And then, I think for us, that's what we are always looking at. How do we find ways to get this content very creative and innovatively to masses?
And so tell me more. So what is it in a nutshell?
Yeah.
And then, what's the problem that you're trying to solve and all those good things? Yeah.
So basically what we do is we produce localized, top quality educational media and deliver it through TV, radio, and mobile phones.
Yes. I was in your initial pitch now. I remember,
yeah.
So sort of edutainment on the borders of educational content.
Exactly. So these are educational cartoons that teach kids math and science, early literacy, numeracy, life skills. We teach growth mindset, resilience, all these things. And it's through animated episodes. But then it's not just cartoons, right? We also have ebooks, books. We use SMS messages to send educational messages to parents and kids. Then we also have interactive voice response, because most people just have feature phones and they can only listen, call a number and listen to stories. So we send like parental tips on like how do you engage more in your children's learning.
And so this is so I just interviewed Dost. So a similar thing in that you ring up and there is a kind of recorded message of content.
Yeah, so we do that. Okay. And then we're on TV and then radio, and then we also have apps, Android apps, iOS apps that parents who have internet can access.
So you've got this omni-channel offering.
Yep.
That you're tailoring to different people depending on their needs. So it sounds like a lot of work.
It's a multi-platform learning resource.
How big's the team?
The team is now 26 people full time. Yeah, it's a lot. It's really a lot.
And then when did it start? How did it grow?
Started about 5 years ago, and really looking to fill this gap of why do we have content out there. First, we have content right in the West that is great on Khan Academy and so forth, but it's not reaching the poorest kids in Africa. And even if it did, it's not localized. And then it's not just that, it's not in the languages that these kids speak. So what do we do? And so we said, okay, why don't we start with animated content, edutainment, and leverage TV because it has the widest reach along with radio, and really get this content out there to masses. So we are doing this, in Tanzania, a lot of kids may not have like their own TV at home, but they have access to one, right? And so you find like a lot of kids are rallying around the TV and just watching in the community together.
And that's why you have to make it as good.
Yes.
That they, will choose to watch that channel as opposed to whether it's football or whatever.
They love it. Like the characters, it's all story based and very catchy songs that are original songs. So, like when we're teaching letters, it's like letter A, there's a song, there's a dance. The letter is talking to the child, telling the child what to do, interact with me, jump with me, sing with me, come with me. So when kids watch our shows, they're not sitting still. They are moving, they're dancing, because it prompts them to do that.
Okay. With it being content, is it kind of content that's generated within your company, or is it through partnerships with existing content providers?
We produce everything in Tanzania in a very small room. This is much bigger.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
In a very tiny studio, and we produce everything ourselves. We have animators, we have a team of sound engineers, we have researchers, educators. Our whole process of creating content is user-centric. So we always have kids in the office. They have to come to test the content. So when we write a script, we bring kids to to look at it, and like we read it to them and see what's happening. Do they like it? Are they learning? And then we move on to the next thing, and we test through and through and through.
Well, this is one of the questions. So, how do you measure the impact?
Yeah. So, the whole process, like I said, is very user-centric. And then when it comes to measuring impact, we do randomized control trial studies in partnership. We've done one in partnership with the University of Maryland. And we've seen significant improvements. Like kids who watch Akeli and Me improved by 12% in school readiness scores than control groups, and also outperformed their peers by 24% in counting.
So what's next?
I mean, there's 440 million kids in Africa, and they're going through a severe learning crisis. On top of everything, like if you look at, no classrooms, no books, no teachers, undertrained teachers, all of that stuff, like actually the education we're giving them right now, those who are in school, is late. It's like preparing them for the past. Like they will graduate and they will not have any skills needed for the 21st century or beyond. Like nothing, right? So we are wasting their time, we are lying to them, and they're going to be very frustrated. So we want to fix that. We want to teach kids skills that they need, critical thinking, problem-solving skills, all these character strengths, really important, especially in Africa where you have like the biggest leadership crisis anywhere, so there's a lot.
I'm from the UK.
I know, but
sort our problems out.
Africa, we are going through stuff, right? I think we need to reach. What we want to do is transform learning by reaching all 440 million. Our plan is to reach 30 million by 2022. We are at 11 million right now.
11 million, okay.
Yes, and those are the numbers that we have, but we know we are reaching more.
And do you foresee partnering with schools and kind of going in that way and becoming more involved in the hands-on stuff in the classroom as well?
Yep, absolutely. Like, so what we are saying is like, do you have devices in the classroom? Use this content. Use it, because the challenge is a lot of times a lot of schools in Africa don't have tablets, they don't have computers, so it's like they don't have TVs either, right? In schools. Or they don't even have electricity, so it can be challenging. But for the schools that have these devices, we give them the content and we say, look, use it for blended learning as a teacher in school. We've tried this in Tanzania, and we went to the rural schools where kids were dropping out to go be farmers or whatever, or to go get married, and we saw kids are coming back to school, because now they are hearing from their friends that learning is now fun, right? Like we watch cartoons, and then like about fractions, then the teacher teaches us fractions. It's like, oh my God, something has changed, and now school is engaging and fun. I want to be there. I want to go see what's going on. So this is exciting, very exciting, because it sparks imagination in children, and then they're like, oh yeah, now I love math.
And how did you get into this? What were you doing beforehand?
So I mean, this is for me is very personal, because I grew up in rural Tanzania with going to the craziest schools where, we did not have resources. And then later on, so that was like that extreme. And then later on, I got the opportunity to study in the US. And I was like, what?
So what was the opportunity? Was it like a scholarship? Or?
Yeah, it was a scholarship to go study in the US. And I was like, my goodness, the difference in the quality of education that I was getting in Tanzania compared to the one in the US. I was like, this is wrong. Like, it's injustice. And I was like, it's not fair. It's not like people are stupid. It's like people don't have access, right? I was like, I have to go back home and do something about this. So I studied business, but I have always been passionate about, and I really believe that like education is the solution to a lot of our problems in this world. And if we teach kids differently, like we will make a lot of progress. And so I went back home and I joined this because this is the way. For me, I believe this is how we change the world.
I think they must be like, this is a good posting because you seem like you're a bit of a dynamo. You're just going to like go and sort it all out.
Yeah, so I think I was working in Washington, D.C. I worked at Wells Fargo, and I was feeling like, you know what, whose life am I changing here? Like, we're making somebody richer, and that does not make me like motivated. So like this, I have a lot of these
patterns when people are speaking, they're banking or consultancy, and they're like, they get to a certain point and it's like, something's got to change.
Yeah, I was very unhappy. I was very unhappy, and I was like, yeah, I'm going back home, and you know, like I couldn't live in the US full time. Like I feel guilty. Like who am I to have like I just feel like it's wrong. Like I was educated so I can help others. Like there is like it was not just for fun. It was not just for me. Like it was for everybody else I left behind, and I have to go back for them. So I couldn't. Like I was like, I can't live in the US. I feel too guilty.
So who are some of your favorite characters in terms of the children that you've got to know that use the content that you've got to know as you've worked there?
So I am actually one of the characters.
Oh, okay. Well, I meant the users. So the kids that you've got to know that engage with it. I bet when they're in the office, you were describing it as quite small, and they come in and
oh my God, you have. I wish you could visit our office. So we have these two kids, Andrew and Sarah, and they come almost every day because also their mother works with us. And what we've seen, like, it's incredible. Like so Sarah started coming to the office since she was born. And, you know, as she's been growing up, we've been testing different content with her. And you can tell, like you can just see how sharp she is. Like, her social-emotional skills are so high. And she can hold a meaningful conversation with you. Like, she is such a joy. And you can see that this content is actually making a difference.
So we have a whole raft of different people listening in. You know, some of them are educators, some are from early years right up to higher education, investors, etc. Are any of those useful? What kind of partnerships are you looking to kind of build to help grow what you're doing as well now?
Yeah, I think, for us, we want to continue growing, reaching as many kids as possible. So funding is definitely needed and really important for that. But we also, the way we do this is through partnerships. We also partner with a lot of different organizations to distribute our content because we know we cannot do it alone. We are good at creating content. We don't have all these people on the ground to distribute it. So it's like if you're already in Ghana, if you're already in Nigeria, if you're already doing something on the ground, how can we give you this content so you can take it to the masses? That's how we do it. So we are also showing in refugee camps because we partner with organizations such as the International Rescue Committee to take our content to refugee camps. So there's I think also we need to look at the education problem holistically. So we've created content for kids, but we're also seriously looking at parents and caregivers because they're their children's first teacher. And a lot of them in Tanzania or Africa say, you know what, I was not educated, I'm not equipped to help my child learn, I'm just feeding them, I'm paying for school fees, I'm doing these other things. And it's like, no, let's create materials and content for you so you can learn how to be more engaged and like things you can do with your child to help them learn. And then we also have to, after that, look at teachers and say, how can we help teachers continue training? And it's not, a lot of teachers in Africa are undertrained. And so, you can have the teacher in school, but like there's no creativity. They're using fear as a source, as a form of motivation, and they're completely discouraging and demoralizing these kids to learn. Like, how do we equip teachers as well with skills? So we would need content for that, and that's something we are also interested in, but we don't have money to do right now. So there's a lot of opportunities. Like, we cannot solve this problem just one one way or one place here, and then that's it. We have to look at everyone around the child, everyone around learning, including the governments and everyone. So we need all hands on deck, founder, investor, whatever, everybody, mother, father, teacher, everybody needs to be on board, and we all have to help and support our children to succeed.
Okay, thank you. One final question. You mentioned you like podcasts, so can you share some of the podcasts that you listen to?
Oh, yes. My favorite, Life Coach School, actually. And I just love to reflect. And by Brooke Castillo.
Do you listen to them on the way to work? Or?
I do. Oh, so there's traffic in Tanzania. And I used to hate it, but I love it now because of podcasts. Because I'm like, I can finish the podcast. And sometimes when there's no traffic, I get upset.
Yeah, I know. Sometimes I park my car, and if I haven't finished the episode, I have to just sit in there like a weirdo until it's finished.
I have to finish the podcast. Oh, I'm like, traffic, great.
Yeah.
I can listen. So I love that, and I'm gonna be listening to this. I find myself just sticking to one, almost like hoping to finish or something, and then like I'll get to the next. But I think I need to diversify a little bit and just go here and here and here and here and here. So yeah, I think.
Oh, that's brilliant. So if people want to find out more about what you're doing, it's www.ubongo, so ubongo.org.
And then also look up our content on YouTube. Okay. Look up Akili and Me, Akili and Me, one word. That is our primary show for 3 to 6 year olds. It's so much fun. And if you want your kids to learn Swahili, it's also, we have a bilingual content on there.
I've got 4-year-olds, so I need to get
Yes, and then we have Ubongo Kids, and that is UBONGO Kids, one word, and that is our show for 7 to 14 year olds. Okay. And that is a STEM one, teaching science and math.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure to get to know you.
Thank you so much.
Yes, so I'm here with Khadija from Praxi Labs, and we have just walked from the main area of Global Education and Skills Forum outside into the next bit where all of the rest of the content is. And you've been stopped most of the way with plenty of people offering you congratulations and saying how much they loved your project. And so to put that into context, that's because the next Billion Edtech Prize that's taken place here, you are one of the finalists, you're one of the 3 winners. First of all, congratulations.
Thank you so much.
And can you tell our listeners what your pitch was about today, and what you were telling the audience about Praxi Labs as well?
Sure. First of all, thanks for your words. It's been really exciting. I've been very. I'm very happy actually now. That's why I cannot talk well. So we are at Praxi Labs. What we are currently doing is we want to solve the problem of the dropout rates of STEM students. So there's this huge problem that's happening now, and it's global. It's not only in emerging markets, for example. Globally, it's now reaching 60% people dropping out of science, technology, engineering, mathematics. That's because they don't understand it well. They really have a lot of troubles, a lot of problems, because they do not practice. And why is that happening? One of the main reasons is really the problems facing students in the labs, in the traditional labs. We call them traditional because we've been always having these kinds of labs, regardless of the technology that we have now. So we can try to solve the problems of traditional labs by having virtual labs. So what are these problems? Some of the problems facing students is you don't have accessibility all the time. You are very restricted to a specific amount of time. You cannot have any second chances. Once you go inside, you either do it or you don't. That even if you have a lab at your school or university. Some of the countries, and especially emerging markets, do not have labs at all. And even in advanced countries, students, when they go to the lab, they spend a lot of time out of their time. So they don't use it wisely because they have to do a lot of mistakes. They are not used to anything in the lab. They've never seen it before. So one of the very good benefits of virtual labs is you can get students to practice all the time just before going to the wet lab. So you don't replace the wet lab. You still have it, but you increase the students' success rates. when they go there, they have a lot of confidence. They know what's happening around them. So we got a lot of statistics, not only ours, but a lot of other surveys that have shown that when you use virtual labs and go to the real lab, you have an increase in the performance of students by up to 60%, which is really a huge amount. And also their retention, their stickiness to the science and not dropping out is reaching 80%. So we've seen enormous benefits from virtual labs, and that's why we think it would be really a great solver for some of the problems happening now.
And on the way here, a lot of people were, asking to talk to you, and they were from a variety of other companies, whether it was edtech companies or they were teachers. What's the kind of feedback you're getting on why people are interested in it, and why do you think you were one of the top 3 out of how many companies started the Next Billion Prize?
So it started by 800. And then they chose 30, wow. So 30 from around the world. And it's actually, I'm very proud to say that we were the only one from the MENA region. So it's the 30 from the rest of the world.
So you're based in Egypt?
Yes.
Yeah.
And then after that, from the 30, on the first day they chose 12, then 6, and then today 3 winners. So it's a long way, but we've done it.
And what's that been like, that whole process of, I'm sure you've probably taken part in other pitch competitions, but to give people an idea of, today you were pitching already yesterday, it's you've got to have stamina for it.
So, it's a lot of practice. And like yesterday, the winner of the last year, Chatterbox, she talked about it, and she said the same words I would say to everyone. Mm-hmm. You need to practice all the time. So whenever you're in the shower, you're having breakfast, you're anywhere, you're just practicing. So I woke up today, and before getting out of bed, I just said my pitch. Yeah, so it was you know it more than you know yourself. I think that's the idea behind it.
It's like getting the muscle memory of your pitch.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, flexed. Exactly. Yeah.
And so, just to go back to the other point, so what's the kind of feedback been from, whether it's teachers or lecturers within universities or other people that have stopped you here to say congratulations?
Yeah, so true, I've been stopped by a lot of people, and they're actually from various backgrounds. So, but mostly the people who understand it are the people who are facing the problems. So university professors, teachers at schools, mainly science teachers, engineering. So they are already every day in the classrooms, and they see the problem. They see their students studying science in theory, and that doesn't make any sense because a very big component of science is labs. Mm-hmm. So lab experimentation, lab practice, that's one of the main components of studying science. And you cannot just go and graduate without ever being in the lab.
And what's your, I suppose, what do you love about science? Where did your passion for science start as well?
Yeah. Although I'm not a scientist, I have a PhD in computer science, okay. But I was specialized in human-computer interaction, which is really about all of user experience. So how do you let the human work with the computer and the best experience to have? So that was all my passion in going into this idea of, okay, we have technology, we have problems, how to solve them. But I was always facing that problem, even in our university, even in our faculty. Although it's not a lot of science, but just getting to let students try logic circuits or very simple things, but we don't have a lab to enter to try them. So they always understood it just by theory, and that doesn't make sense again. So
what's next for Praxi Lab? So you've won this great prize.
Yeah.
What would you like to do with it, with the momentum that you'll get off the back of this?
We are having loads of awareness, exposure, and that's amazing for us now. So we are in the part of expansion to other markets. So currently we are in Egypt and Saudi Arabia. We would love to expand to markets in the MENA region, so like Dubai, like UAE, Bahrain, Oman. All these markets are very important for us, and we are talking to lots of universities there. So that's one of the things, awareness and connecting with other people. But we're also currently raising funds for our expansion, so it would be lovely to talk to VCs and investors as well.
Okay, so any VCs and investors, universities listening in, make sure you get in contact. And what's the best way for people to connect with you?
So praxilabs.com is our website. Just go there, and we have experiments so you can try it and give us your feedback. And if you want to reach me, so an easy email would be Khadija, KHADIJA @praxilabs.com.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sophia.
So I'm here with the ladies from Dost Education.
Hi, I'm Sneha Sheth. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Dost, where we are helping parents get their kids ready for school in India.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Arushi Vasan, and I lead growth and partnerships for Dost Education in India.
Okay, wonderful. And so basically today you found out that you're a finalist, you're one of the winners for the Next Billion Prize. So how's that been?
It's pretty exciting. I think I was happy to see that there were 2 early childhood education focused organizations that win, and Ubongo took away the first prize. It feels great, to be on a global platform.
So Dost, I'm guessing then from what you've described so far, it's about school readiness and it's about helping bridge that gap between, actually getting in school, having a level of literacy or numeracy. Could you expand a little bit further?
Yeah. So I think the really cool thing is that cool and scary thing is 90% of our brains develop before we're 6 years old. And so if we don't have access to early childhood stimulation, if we're not exposed to vocabulary, we enter school behind as children, and then we can never catch up. And so at Dost, the concept was, well, it's really easy to foster these types of brain building simulations and experiences in the home environment because parents are already looking and craving for ways to get their kids ready for school. Okay. So the model actually gets to kind of the basic fundamentals of how does a mom who never went to school get her child ready for school, and how easy is it for her to do that?
And so what's the model? Is it an app, or can you describe how those mums that you were talking about, how they would access that as well?
Okay, so in India, smartphones are on the rise, but we're dealing with moms, and moms still tend to have feature phones in the lower income communities that we work with. So it's a phone call every day. It's a short call you just have to pick up. It's automated. It's fun sounding, like a short podcast, where we'd give a daily tip or an idea for them to engage better with their kid at home. It would work on cognitive and socio-emotional aspects. So using things found at home, and mother being the first teacher.
Wow, so can you give me an example? Like, you don't have to do it in the voice of the the message, but like...
Okay.
Not the expert, right?
So, example, so there is an activity on sorting. It's this age-old activity. Yeah. We remind the mom about it, where we just tell her that, you can tell your child that you mixed these lentils and these beans mistakenly in a bowl, and the kid will get excited to help you out. And now the kid could get busy sorting those into different heaps, basis the age of the kid. You could put multiple kinds of lentils, and that works on concentration. That is a numeracy skill, and also keeps the kid very well engaged.
Yeah. Well, this is such a big thing, the actual, developing the attention of our children so they can focus on tasks and that kind of thing. And then, so what's the kind of business model point of view? Like, how do you kind of monetize it? Do the parents pay directly, or is it funded by government, or?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we set out to build something and really design it so that it can reach the lowest common denominator. So we didn't want literacy to be a barrier, and that's why we have audio content and so on. We're structured as a nonprofit, which lets us design products that specifically are made for a mother who never went to school or may have gone to school for a few years and dropped out. That being said, we're really excited to see that even mothers from all income levels are excited about having just this daily activity or kind of friendly voice calling you and telling you, like, here's something easy you can do tonight, or here's something you can think about or observe in your child. So we're thinking about ways to partner with other streaming services and other people who are actually interested in podcasts and audio-visual design to see if we can have a more sustainable model.
Okay, so at the moment, is it free, and then...
Yes, it's free for parents, and then partners who want to bring those to their communities pay us for the platform.
Okay, interesting. And so how did you both get into this, and what made you kind of start Dost Education?
Okay, I'll start. I think it was very obvious growing up for me that I had access to a better education because my parents had a better access to their education. So my grandmother, I think, dropped out at 4th grade, but then when she was older, made sure her daughter got a really good education. And so you can just see how in one generation everything can change with the power of a good education. Mm-hmm. So I've been in this field in different ways for the last decade. And 2 years ago, I had the idea for Dost because I always wondered, like, what if these mothers just had a friend that was supporting them, that was kind of not just giving them the confidence boost, but really getting down into the details of like tactically, here's what you can do. And a few years ago in India, the mobile revolution began, and I started seeing mothers from, what we would consider a low income or mid income family having their own phone. And that's when the kind of insight hit that we could really make a scalable, fun experience for them through Dost.
And whereabouts are you based?
So we're in Delhi, in India.
So you need I would imagine mobile operator would be the obvious sponsor for this if they're listening.
Yeah, if Gia's listening, we're here.
Yeah. The phone's there. We want it to be ringing. Okay, cool. And then what would you like to do next? What's the next kind of 6 months, year look like?
So I think now that we understand exactly what our users want because we've worked with 30,000 families. We actually also have live conversations with about 50 to 100 families every month. So I think now we know exactly what they want out of us in addition to the audio podcast kind of phone call system that we have today. So what that's going to look like is building towards both additional topics and content, but also giving them maybe an audio-visual experience through a smartphone app. We're also looking to just make the current program as scalable and cost-effective as possible so that we can partner with, say, state governments and other entities that are looking to serve the lowest income families.
And how about in Delhi? Is there a sort of EdTech community that's kind of building there? What's the kind of... I haven't visited yet, so just getting a sense for our listeners of other EdTech entrepreneurs or users, or if that kind of community is coming together as well.
So yes, we do see a rise of education tech products today, even in Delhi. We have some of our peers working in education tech. So I believe there is a community now building up, and we just expect it to continue to grow.
And are there sort of accelerators and incubators, or do you think this might be something coming down the line?
I think in another life, we would, once we're done changing illiteracy, we would actually start one because I think there's so many amazing ideas and potential. And there is actually something for Indian nonprofits in general. There's a lot of support for nonprofits, but I think the concept of being a tech nonprofit is still kind of new. So we've been really lucky to get support from someone called Fast Forward. They're based in San Francisco, and they accelerate tech nonprofits. And so that has helped us kind of think about how do we stay true to our mission, but also build the best in class technology.
And are there any must attend events as well in India on education that you tend to go to, or how do you kind of engage with the rest of the community?
So Arshi, it's amazing. She has found ways to talk to school leaders, talk to parents. We actually have a avoid events unless if users are there policy for the most part, because really when you're building a company or a nonprofit that's focused on tech and a consumer-driven platform, the most important person is a person who's using it. So maybe Arshi can talk a little bit about how she's actually gotten in front of those communities.
Well, this is actually a really interesting question because quite often it feels like, innovations in education are sort of preaching to the converted. So, and that ability to kind of connect with people that perhaps are underrepresented is notoriously difficult. So how do you actually, build that trust, communicate, keep that relationship going, etc.?
Okay, so one thing which we've done over the months and over the years is that we've partnered with some local big organizations who are, say, working in Delhi or working across the country. They tend to have a good network within the communities we want to work with. So at the moment, on ground, we have about 12 women who work with us part-time. I think they are our, hands and feet on the ground, and they're the eyes and ears. They go out and they onboard people. So a big chunk of our users come through that very direct in-person method. There's a lot of trust there because, they're mothers themselves and they go talk to mothers. So they're willing to share their number, they're willing to interact and exchange information. So that has really worked out for us. And to reach schools, again, we have worked mostly through good partners. We haven't gone school-wise, and we haven't really met these partners at events. It's mostly been through a connection or another. So we've also been fortunate that we found the best kind of people.
I think one of the things that really stands out to me is how if you have, one of the things we did was we had a chai session where school leaders came and actually talked to us, and we really take the approach of like, well, what are your challenges and how can we support that? Because we don't want them to use those if it's not really going to solve a problem they're having. And so I think Arshi's really done a great job of building trust within not just like the parent community and the community of mothers who work on field, but also the school leadership community who really feels the pain point of parent engagement really well. So it does come down to trust and really understanding what that person is struggling with instead of thinking about like, how can I just like get my product out there?
I completely agree. If people are listening in and they would like to connect with what you're doing, what's the best way for them to go about that?
Well, you can check out our website first, www.dosteducation.com. And you can email our team at founders@dosteducation.com.
Okay, brilliant. Well, thank you both very much.
Thanks.
Congratulations. Well, I'm delighted to have Carla Ertz, Director at the Tomorrow Institute, on the line. So welcome, Carla.
Hi, Sophie. Lovely to hear you.
I suppose it's been a few weeks now since GSF. We're back in the UK. I suppose now the dust has settled a little bit. I wondered what your kind of main takeaways from this year's event were, and especially sort of the Edtech track that was running at the event.
Okay, well, my takeaways were pretty amazing. The event was so well received. The feedback has been absolutely overwhelming, which meant that we've done something right. And it's really gratifying to see how people engaged with the event. And I was mainly stuck in the Edtech room in Spice C for about 3 days, where we ran the Next Billion Edtech Prize competition and also had an Edtech Summit, both of which went extremely well and were very engaging and very vibrant, I have to say. I wasn't expecting it quite as vibrant as it was. So that was an overall takeaway, and what was really fantastic to see was that both the Edtech, the Next Billion Edtech Prize, as well as, of course, the Global Teacher Prize, were won by 2 African people. And so the African continent kind of got a special highlight this year, and that always has to be something really, really special. So pretty amazing event.
Yeah, I mean, that's quite a defining part of GSF, I think, is how global it is. And I mean, from being in that room for 3 days, can you kind of relay to the listeners perhaps some of the types of EdTech companies that were pitching?
Sure, absolutely. I mean, this year the competition went a bit further afield in as much that compared to last year, although obviously there were quite a lot of international people last year, but I think we had a bit more variety in the sort of the countries that were represented as compared to last year. We had a huge representation from Latin America, which was very exciting because it's always the continent that seems to be a bit further away for us. Even Australia seems a bit closer for some reason. So it was really exciting to see the kind of Latin American startups appear. And I have to thank our Varkey Argentina team for that, because they were really helpful in recruiting and sourcing the startups for us, and did an amazing job supporting the whole event. And what was also interesting was the variety of ideas again that sort of start popping up in EdTech. And it's not just about, delivering EdTech to the classroom. It's also delivering learning supported by technology or enhanced by technology in whatever scenario you can possibly imagine. And obviously the competition is targeting resource-poor contexts, whether that's in the global south or the global north. That plays a determining role in how we kind of get to engage with the startups and the type of startups or companies that we engage with. And that, to me, is really, really exciting. It's something that always has excited me around EdTech. It's not just what happens in the classroom. It's actually that whole concept of learning wherever you are and especially the access to learning, which is what a lot of these companies are enabling in places where there might not be very much. And that excites me about the whole proposition and about the whole competition. To some extent also a bit reflected in the kind of the summit content, we then also try to curate around it, and the speakers we kind of invited around the summit. You know, we had a number of Africa panels which were amazingly well received and very well attended, and it was actually quite hard after the Africa panels to move on to the next one, because everybody kept hanging around and, you know, stormed to the stage and wanted to talk to speakers and wanted to kind of continue the discussion. It was really, really lively and vibrant. We then also had, a China panel. We had an India panel. So it was very nice to see all these continents and regions sort of represented in the content we curated as well. The Omidyar network presented their report. They did an extensive kind of research program in many parts of the world around how Edtech is deployed and used in different contexts, and are developing a framework on the back of it. So they brought one of the Indonesian startups to kind of enhance their panels.
At this point, a quick segue, as I had a chance to speak with Eliza Eriksson, an investment partner at Omidyar Network, about this report. Here's what she had to say before we go back to Carla.
We were talking about a report we've just released on the power of EdTech, equitable EdTech, to be delivered in low to middle income countries.
Okay, and so what were your main findings from this report? Because I'm imagining quite a lot of work would have gone into that behind the scenes.
We've been investing in EdTech for several years in developing countries. We're very excited about the potential to leapfrog a lot of the current challenges on the ground in some of these countries. But have realized that basically it's hard to scale it. Mm-hmm. And so we looked at 4 countries where education technology has scaled across a spectrum of students and schools, and basically distilled those learnings for others to take them and scale EdTech in their home countries.
Reaching those people, it's not as easy as just downloading an app. So, what were the main findings, and what can you share?
Basically, when you think about infrastructure in these countries, it's very different, both the devices and the connectivity. You know, schools aren't all connected. Devices may not be smartphones, they may not have data on them, they might be just feature phones. So you have to design for that environment. We have, our portfolio often has an offline version, and that can be used with all the same features and then synced once you have online access. So you just have to design for these environments. It doesn't mean it's impossible. Mm-hmm. You just have to take it as a user design challenge, which all good product developers have.
Everyone that's listening in will be interested in, who you're investing in or what types of companies.
Sure. And we're both a philanthropic organization, so we do grant making as well as invest in companies with social impact. In education and in EdTech, we're most excited about particular models that solve particular problems in developing markets. One, set of companies is in the adaptive learning space, and adaptive learning is quite interesting in developing markets because you often have children that are several grades behind. Mm-hmm. So if you have a platform that can meet them where they, teaching at their right level rather than teaching several grades ahead, they won't lose another year of school. So they can be used for remediation, bringing kids back up to grade level, and other things. So those are types of companies. We also look at companies that help teachers who have been underprepared to teach, with very specific lesson plans for how to teach a particular concept, like fractions, when they haven't been particularly well prepared for the classroom. Those are some examples of areas where we're interested in.
And then what are the kind of conversations that you've had here at the Global Education Skills World Forum, with the types of people that you've met and interesting conversations?
No, definitely. I mean, we wanted to launch the report here because it's very multi-sector. Mm-hmm. You have, ministers, government leaders, you have the private sector, you have investors and entrepreneurs, and the report really basically finds that all of those people are needed to scale. You can't just have, bet on the entrepreneurs without a real EdTech policy at the federal level. You need to build human capacity in the system. You need to enable infrastructure, around Wi-Fi and connectivity. And so we find all of those kinds of actors are here. So it was a really good audience for the report to launch it.
Well, you mentioned EdTech policy. Are there any countries that you're seeing doing interesting things in that space, or, actually sort of putting some of that embedded into their approach to education?
Yeah, actually, I mean, everyone talks about the U.S., so I won't talk about the U.S. I'll talk about Chile, which may be less well known. Chile's had been in a 20-year-long initiative to have Edtech in their public schools, in their government schools. And they basically paired connectivity, access to hardware, access to learning content and training with funding, particularly for low resource schools. They also have a set of learning standards. So to reach those goals, these schools were able to use EdTech. So they kind of took that ecosystem approach right from the top, right from the federal level, and many years ago. So,
yeah. And how did you come into this? When did you join the network, and what's your background?
I've been around a while. So this is my 8th year at the Omidyar Network. And I come from an interesting background. I have a finance background, and I kind of went to graduate school and realized that there were ways to, basically align my values with my skills.
I've literally just had this conversation with the woman that won the Next Billion Prize, who was working at Wells Fargo.
Yes.
She's like, I had to go, yeah.
It's very similar, like Wall Street, I'm from New York, etc. But I had kind of an epiphany going back to school and learning there were sort of ways to align my values with my skill set. Also, early in my career, I worked in Central America at a microfinance bank.
Okay.
And so I had a little bit of exposure to sort of business for social challenges.
Yeah, and that's scaling, and maybe it's micro, but
the power
has a massive impact
to deliver impact. So
okay. And if people want to find out about the report and download it and that kind of thing, where's the best place for them to go?
They can go to our website at omidyar.com, which is OMIDYAR.com.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much, Eliza.
Thank you, Sophie.
So it became a really, really kind of global affair, highlighting how context plays such a huge role in all of this. And that to me was really exciting. 1 minute we were talking about AI, the next minute we were talking virtually about, a kind of a feature phone and how we can do, try and get some access to learning using SMS messaging. And in some cases underpinned by, again, very smart technologies. So the kind of the contrast and the resourcefulness and a sense of innovation that some of these startups bring to kind of solve, an access problem or a problem that, we wouldn't in the global north solve that way at all, because we wouldn't necessarily know how to, because we kind of don't have to deal with those contexts. That's really exciting to see. And I came out really, really sort of refreshed, despite the fact that I was pretty tired afterwards, but just full of optimism about where it can take us.
And we're going to hear from the 3 winners of the Next Billion Prize. But if people are listening in and thinking, well, how do I get involved in this next time around? What's the kind of process?
Okay, so what we did this year is we do quite a lot of research to kind of look at who's around. And then a lot of the startups were kind of invited to apply, but also through our various networks and, social networks, through the Varkey Foundation in Argentina, we kind of made some noise around the fact that we were running this competition. And so people also started to make inquiries and apply. And we started our application process probably sometime late October, early November last year. And we closed it sort of mid-January. And then we kind of, we had about just shy of 100 applicants, I seem to remember. And out of that, we then selected the 30 who came to Dubai. Not a single one that we asked to come wasn't there. So every single one made a huge effort to be there. We sponsored their accommodation and obviously the time they spend at the conference and their attendance at the conference. And then, the first day, which was a pre-conference day, we got them all 30 to pitch for a bunch of judges from, again, different parts of the world and from different education-related disciplines, from entrepreneurship to, professors at Carnegie Mellon, and a director of a kind of chain of schools in Kenya, and an impact investor. So a very mixed bunch of judges who were involved in sort of listening to 30 pitches of 3 minutes and then scrutinizing with questions what these startups did. After day one, we selected 12 startups going forward to our semi-final on the first day of the main conference. They then pitched for a slightly longer pitch of about 5 minutes with some serious questioning again. And then after the second day of pitching, we then announced the 6 finalists who then pitched on the main stage, the main conference stage, on the last morning of the conference, opening that morning session. And that was really exciting because they were all asked to pitch to an audience of, around 2,000 delegates. And I can tell you I was quite busy the night before till midnight dealing with slightly panicky startups about this, about the state of their slides. So, but, it was great and they all did amazingly well. And then to see 3 startups, sort of coming to the fore, all run by female founders as well. I mean, 5 out of the 6 finalists were all founded by women. And we had finalists from Africa, Pakistan, Brazil, again, a whole plethora of countries, India, and sort of seeing then 3 finalists from different parts of the world doing very, very different things win this prize was really very gratifying.
Well, that's wonderful. And so final point, if people want to kind of connect in to what you're doing and whether it's new summits coming up or next year, where should they go to kind of keep abreast of Tomorrow Institute?
Okay, so we have been very quiet on the website front. I can tell you that a website will start appearing before too long. If they're really desperate to know more straight away, they can send an email to info@tomorrowdigital.com. And also, we will start making some noise about a meetup in London during Edtech Week. So we will have a meetup on the 19th of June in London at the Vue Cinema on Lower Regent Street at 6:30, where we will be talking about no impact, no edtech. So, and people are very welcome to come to this meetup. They'll have to register through an Eventbrite registration, and we will be sending out some messaging around that. And then after that, we will be looking at sort of running some private conferences on how we learn and on other topics. But we are, of course, already planning next year's prize. And more of that will start appearing, in the media and social media, probably late summer.
Late summer. Okay, wonderful. Well, Carla, thank you so much for sharing that with us.
Not at all. It's been my pleasure.
Thanks for listening, everyone. If you enjoyed this week's episode, we would love it if you go to iTunes or Spotify or wherever you are listening in to drop us a rate and review. You can also check out some unique long-form interviews at patreon.com, that's patreon.com/the Edtech Podcast. Have a great week and see you next time.